Warning, this episode has discussions related to consent and eating disorders.
Welcome to our Mico Podcast, episode 3. I'm Mallory the teacher.
I'm Rachel the beginner.
And today we have a special guest,
Stephanie Escorza.
Okay, so this is, I'm not even going to lie, this is like our 5th try at this because we were having technical issues earlier. As soon as we started, first of all, construction started above us, and then we heard beeping outside, and then we heard buzzing in the microphone or in our headset. And so then we had to call in our PA tech specialist.
/ my husband.
/ Rachel Lamb's husband, Lucas Lamb, shout out. And we've been, it's a managerial week. He has been troubleshooting for the last hour. So we're back.
We're back.
Yeah.
We're here.
Well, because it's the first time Rachel Lamb had slated and was like, this is our only take. And I was like, we were like, yeah, we only do one. And then everything got fucked up. Lucas keeps reminding us that there's a full moon coming soon and that everything will be
95% tonight.
95% tonight.
It won't be by the time you hear this podcast.
Yeah, I know. We'll be past the full moon by then. But yeah, Stephanie, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Okay. She's like, I'm ready to fucking do this shit.
She's like, I drove 40 minutes.
And I've been here for 2 hours.
I had a bunch of snacks from Costco.
Yeah.
I did.
Let's go.
I really did, though. It was
all
craft. They had perfectly set up craft.
Wow. Thank you. Yes, it was craft services. Rachel Lamb pulled out all the big ones. And right now I can't have sugar or dairy, not because I'm on some weird diet, but because of medical stuff. And so they were eating these dark chocolate, coconut.
Caramels.
Yeah.
In front of her on
almonds.
purpose.
And every time Rachel Lamb would go, these are so good. Sorry, Mallory, you can't have any. Every time. And I was like, you need to stop.
I'm challenging our friendship and it survived.
Making it stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Testing it out.
I know. I just had my second pair of 3 eggs. I've just been eating eggs and oatmeal constantly.
That's all I'm letting her eat.
I know. Last night when Luke was eating the dark chocolate coconut almonds, I was like, those look so good. And Rachel Lamb from the bathroom goes, no. And I was like, okay. Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
I mean, when you've gone to the urgent care with her for the 4th time, you would also be like, no variables.
No variables.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Welcome to a sixth life. Okay, so I know we've already gone through this, but
Yes.
we don't have to go through everything. But the thing I do want to say is that we are not, our friendship is new. This is
It is.
what we said. It is new. We've known each other for years. Oh man, it's a bummer because now I know the reveal, which it should be here, but now it's already here. But if you could just...
Yeah, I will happily let the people know.
Yeah.
I will let the people know how Mallory and I became friends / acquaintances / whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus. So she and I first met when we were repping in this Meisner intensive that we both were taking. We weren't in the same intensive, but she sat in on mine and we were up there doing Meisner repetition.
Which can we just say what Meisner is? Yeah, I'm realizing. So, I mean, I'm not even going to try to explain what Meisner is, but repetition is just you have a pink sweatshirt.
I have a pink sweatshirt.
You have a pink sweatshirt.
I have a pink sweatshirt.
But then it evolves. So that's where you start. So it's you're happy.
I'm happy.
You're happy.
I'm happy.
And then it goes from there.
And then you cry.
Yeah. And then a lot of people crying. A lot of you yell. You push each other.
Without hurting because it's not allowed in the classroom.
Yeah. It's a safe space, but also anything goes.
Yeah.
And chairs to the back wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it got to a point between me and Mallory where we were just kind of chasing each other around the room. She goes ahead and admits I'm attracted to you. And it was the first time I think a girl in Meisner rep had admitted that she was attracted to me. And you have to repeat what she says. So I was just like, you're attracted to me. I'm attracted to you. You're attracted to me. And then I go I'm confused because I was confused. It was my first time in the situation and she just goes in for it, guys. She went in for a kiss, hardcore. She was going in for it. And the teacher goes, stop. Because he realized, that was him realizing oh man, she was about to go in for the kiss. Oh, that was such a juicy moment. Dang. So that was my introduction to Mallory Grady.
Yeah. It was my gay agenda. Now that I'm hearing it, I'm I confused her.
Oh my God.
I got her thinking. And that's how you swap teams.
But the kiss didn't happen. So I will forever, I just spent my life wondering, what if? What if?
Have you... Maybe we can always edit this out. Have you kissed a girl since then? Ever?
Have I? No, I don't think so.
I love that you have to think about that.
Rep, I don't think so. If it happens, it happens, but I don't, like, I can't recall.
And we had said this previously.
Like 10 minutes later, she'll be like, oh, wait, there was that one.
Yeah.
Probably, honestly.
But it's all a blur in rep, though, too.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of come off and it's
so
like.
you don't really paint. You're not supposed to stick to, like, glue to anything that happens in Meisner repetition. It happens in the moment, and that's it. You
And
let
it's
it go.
gone forever.
Forever and ever, amen.
They're like, if anyone makes it past this, we're clearly all actors. They're like, what did we sign up for?
That was what was nice about bringing Shu on. And the second episode is she's not an actor. So, so it was different.
Shu sells jewelry, and she has like a family business, and they do like wholesale jewelry. And it was like super cool to talk to someone who's not an actor.
Yeah, because Lady was our first podcast, and she is also an actor.
You two feel like you'd be friends, you and Lady.
Lady?
Leydi.
How do you spell it?
Leydi. She's Latin as well.
Cool.
That's not why I said you two would be friends. You two genuinely though feel like she has different but like similar energy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'll do like a friend matchup.
But I always have to be like Latin for the spelling. Because like, I was like, I also thought it was like Lady. And I was like, oh, no, it's L-E-Y.
That's what I assumed. Yeah.
It's like Lady Morales.
Dang.
Yeah, she even says it like that.
Yeah, she loves the drama. Like we were saying earlier, I'm like, I don't love the drama. It just finds me.
I love the tea.
Yeah.
I love the tea. Like,
She
I
always
don't
sends
want to
us,
be
like,
in the drama, but
telenovela stuff when she's like, oh, let me tell you about my like relationship stuff. And then she says me like the Telemundo,
Televisa,
Presenta, yeah.
Univision. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's when we know like some shit's gonna pop off.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, give us the tea.
So, well, now what Rachel Ann will do is like, if I'm texting her and like there's like a very responsible choice I should be making and one that's not as responsible, she always sends me the like Televisa Presenta as like a like pop shit off, and I'm like, okay. But then my other friend who's responsible, Jen, will be like, absolutely not. So it's like, you know, the yin and the yang. We all need it. Yeah. All my earth signs just coming together for me. It's fine.
We wouldn't be actors if we didn't like conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true though. That's true.
Do you feel like you?
No, I don't seek conflict out in real life. I don't.
Oh, yes.
I would, God, this sounds a little suspicious. I don't seek conflict. I seek truth. Oh, she said it. No, yeah. Like I just, I'm serious though. Like I don't like to pretend like everything's okay if like something's not. I can be a little bit of a sensitive baby, but like I know how to manage it. So good for me. No one else's responsibility. But I just, I like to check in, if something's off. And if the relationship actually is important to me, I'm probably going to bring it up and talk about it, because I don't want to keep associating you with something negative. And you probably didn't even mean it, or, you had a different explanation. So it's like, let's chit chat about it. I guess you can call it confrontation, but even that has like a heavy weight to it, like a negative connotation to it. So I just say, no, I like to talk things out. For realsies. Yeah.
Like if you're invested in the relationship, you'll address it. And like, really, have you always been like that?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, a lot of me in high school would just kind of let stuff like, if it hurts my feelings, cool, it hurts my feelings, but I'm still just going to act like everything's okay because we're in high school. Yeah, I need to keep this little friend group that I've had for years because I don't know, I felt like I couldn't branch out, or like, I don't know, I felt married to them. Like, we're already here. I'm not going to see you after college, maybe. So whatever. That's honestly, I was just holding on for dear life in high school. High school was the worst, except for the drama program.
Oh, you did drama in high school?
Yes. Aww. They had a really good drama program in high school, like a really good program.
Where are you originally from?
I was born in Atlanta, and then at 3, I moved to Lawrenceville. And then at 13, I moved to Alpharetta, Georgia.
And that's where you did high school?
Yeah, I went to high school. Yep. Wow. It's not the most nurturing place for an individual or a creative soul, I'm going to say.
Very specifically suburban up there.
Yes, it's like upper middle class suburbia, for those of you who don't know. Yeah.
It's a suburb of Atlanta that's like an hour away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is, I still live in that same house in Alpharetta. Hence why I'm like, I don't really want to live there, but free rent for now.
Yeah.
No, relatable.
Yeah, truly relatable. Yeah, so you did drama. And then when did you start dancing?
So dancing was the first thing I ever really did. Like, if we're talking first, preschool, dude.
Oh, wow.
They had a cute little ballet for toddlers or whatever program at my little pre-K.
LOL, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh my God.
Commercial.
It's been
sponsored by Domino's.
Oh no.
Well, now it's back. Okay. Our fake living room behind us is back. Okay.
It hasn't done that for the last 5 hours. Today's a mess.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep
going.
anyways.
I'm so sorry. I was sitting here like, of course.
No, I love that you pointed that out. Ballet. I did ballet at like 5 years old. And then my mom just kept enrolling me in recreational dance. It was just ballet, and then eventually was ballet and tap, all the way to, I think I was maybe 10 when I stopped. I had done ballet, tap, jazz, and baton, and I had done baton in like the Snellville parade twice.
That feels correct for you.
That was so cool. Oh, I had fun with that.
Yeah.
And we moved then to Alpharetta, where, my mom didn't really know where to look into places for putting me in dance classes, and she wasn't really interested in signing me up for them anymore, which kind of sucked. And when I was 13, I was like, Mom, I kind of want to do point ballet. But at that point she was like, I don't think so. I think it's time to get a little serious now.
Oh, so, interesting. What does that mean?
Wow.
She just she thought it was just something she would put me in for fun, or just something cute, like get pictures of your little daughter in these cute little ballet outfits and stuff. I didn't think she probably didn't think I would take it seriously. But I actually kind of did. As a little kid, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an actress, but I'm also gonna be a dancer, and I want to be a ballerina too. But she just didn't. I don't think she ever saw creative things as a serious career. So she was like, why would I sign you up for that? It's not necessary, is how she kind of saw it. So I did feel kind of deflated, and I was like, well, I'm not going to push for it, because she's the one who has to drive me. I'm 13 and she pays for them. So I didn't really dance anymore until a random contemporary jazz class I took. Oh, the cat is joining us.
Yeah, she'll do that. She'll also just...
Oh my God.
You're just gonna, do a little security check, and then...
This is really cool to witness. I'm not gonna lie. Hi, precious. Are you gonna lick the mic and break everything?
I'm glad she wants to be heard as well.
I know.
In case you thought we were lying, there's a real cat.
A little contemporary jazz class that I took, which I couldn't keep up with. Because I don't know, she moved pretty fast.
And when was this?
How old were you?
This was I was 15, 16. This was my attempt of trying to be you know what, I want to keep dancing.
So you stopped at 10, wanted to do it 13. This is 15, 16.
Yeah, 15, 16. And again, my mom still had to like drive me, so she would take me, but even I wasn't feeling the classes that well, because I kind of felt like, you know, I went from being like one of the best in the classes when I was 12 and stuff to suddenly I'm 16 and I can no longer pick up choreography that quick, and it's gotten a little bit more complicated because, you know, jazz for like a 12-year-old versus a 16-year-old, it's going to have different things. But I didn't understand that at 16. I was just like, I guess I'm not good at this. So I stopped going. And, oh, excuse me.
Which is interesting because we've talked about Enneagram a lot, and we've talked about this as a 3. And I think that we find value in ourselves as humans a lot by achieving and being the best, right? Does that resonate with you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I can see how, as a teenager especially, being like, I was the best, and I was gone for a few years, and now I'm back and I'm not the best. So like, fuck this, I'm out.
Fuck this, I'm out. Yeah.
I have a version of that in my personality because we're not the same Enneagram number, but I wouldn't try things that I knew I would fail at. So I always did a lot of things that I was good at, but the things that I really liked, I'm truly not good at. Like I love music, I love dancing, and I'm like, it's just, I'm like the most inflexible person. I'm not good at it. And at that age, I like wouldn't do anything that I knew that I wouldn't be good at. Instead of just like pushing through it and working. It's so interesting, like what shapes you as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you took the pop-up class, and then you were like, I'm out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm out. Like, I'm not good at this anymore, I guess. Like, that's it. That's, if I show up and I'm not good, like, I guess it's just not me. Like, okay, fuck this. And I didn't really mind it too much because by then I had started acting in high school. And I was like, well, I'm good at this. I rock here, so I'm going to stay here. And I literally did not look into dancing again until I had always kept it in the back of my mind because, like, I love it. And anytime there was like a school dance, like, oh, I was so excited, like so freaking excited. And I was excited to go to college because it's like, oh, I can go to clubs. And people are always like, ew, clubs, whatever. No, I go to the clubs to dance. It's like an opportunity. The music is loud. I'm allowed to do this here. It's encouraged. And I always feel super confident, honestly, walking into the club because it's like, I feel good when I dance. I know I'm good. I'm going to do whatever I want here. And it's like, oof, freedom galore. So yeah, but training wise, I never really took another dance class ever other than Zumba, which is lit. And then your class, Mallory, was the first class I had taken in, I don't know how long.
Did you dance in theater? Like, did you do musical theater? Any dancing in that, or was it like simple box steps?
Yeah, there was dancing in the musical theater. It wasn't like anything too complicated. It was fun, but it was like fun and light. You know, nothing too. I did play Cha Cha Di Gregorio in Greece. She had a dance number with Danny Zuko, but we were not that good. Musical theater dancing is it's very specific, and I don't think I was that amazing, but I wasn't bad for sure.
Was your mom supportive of you doing drama in high school? Because it was creative.
Right. I think she was after. Why was she supportive?
Maybe because
I didn't give her a choice. At that point, I didn't give her a choice. I really liked acting, and it was like the only thing in that high school that I felt at home in. So like, she wasn't going to take it. No one was going to take this away from me. I was like, all right, I'm in advanced drama too, Mom. I have rehearsals. I'm going to be at school till 11 p.m. I need you to pick me up. Didn't really leave room for discussion. She was just kind of doing it. She would just do it. But I think she also saw like that I wasn't bad at it. Like she saw that I wasn't bad at it. So she went to the shows and she was supportive. She'd bring me flowers after my shows. She loves recording her daughters doing like their things. She loves that. She loves having bragging rights. So she was supportive of that. When application time came around though, she was kind of pushing me to maybe consider the army and maybe think about becoming a doctor or lawyer. This came out of nowhere.
That feels really out of left field.
I know. I was like, where is this coming from, Mom?
Did you have good grades too on top of it? Or?
I did. For the most part, I did. My transcript looked like a stepping stone because like my freshman year, sophomore year, I didn't really give a fuck, y'all. Like it was A's, B's, and like maybe even 1 or 2 C's, which if you know me, I'm not a C gal, but I didn't care. And my version of not caring is getting a C. But I got more serious about it as the years went by. So then by the time I was like junior year, I had like 2 APs, 2 honors classes, and yeah.
Maybe she's like, oh, okay. She's like gifted in academics, and maybe that's where she was thinking. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think we were just kind of the money situation after the recession in like 2007, 2008 made things very tight. And she, I think, was just looking for solutions of, you know, how do I send my daughter off to college with like us having to like, I guess, ask people for help or anything. Sense. And it's crazy saying this out loud now because like my mom and dad just straight up let me go. I went to Florida State University. Am I allowed to say specific things like that?
Yeah.
I went to Florida State University at first because I wanted to check out their film program. They had a really good film program. And my parents knew, like they knew I'm going to go to a college where I can do something creative. It's either going to be film or it's going to be, you know, theater, something. And thing about that, I'll give my dad credit for this. He did tell me when I was younger, you know, do whatever you want, but make sure you're one of the best. make sure you're one of the best.
It's like, no wonder you're a 3. Like all of the messaging, like everything makes sense. I'm like, check. Like you're like a textbook.
And it's like, I mean, I already agreed with that statement though, because I don't want to just like, I'm not going to go into something and just like suck or be mediocre. Like, no, that's not, I have to be good at it. I'm sorry.
But there are people who are fine being middle of the road. And honestly, I'm envious of them.
I'm jealous.
Because I'm like,
and they're always
I'm so
jealous.
Unhappy. Like I'm like, why can't I just be okay? Like I feel like there's a lot more joy sometimes when you don't have to be the best, which like
there is.
Yes. I mean, maybe that's an assumption.
Well, no, I've had to redefine what I define as the best now, right? Because there's no such thing as the best unless you're talking like, oh, well, you have to be the Oscar winner. Like, girl, that is painful. Like it's not unattainable, but if I think about the things that you have to do in order to become an Oscar winner, like I'm sorry, but that doesn't sound worthy of my time the time.
It's interesting that perfectionists end up in the arts. I don't think that's an accident.
That is weird.
Yes. Well, there's no perfection to reach. And so I'm like, we're just on this endless hamster wheel.
I bet you that's the challenge of it though. Like
what insight.
I've thought about this a lot because I'm like, why can't I do something else? But I think, there is no, and I feel like
you're chasing like the end of a rainbow that's not there.
It's not there. Well, and instead of going, oh, it doesn't exist and letting there be freedom in that, I feel like we end up chasing something that doesn't exist. And that's what's so infuriating about it is instead of being like, oh, it's all subjective for the most part.
Even when you think about dance and like an elite level of dance, I'm like, it looks different on different people's bodies. There's so much like artistry that comes into play, and I'm like, there's not like a perfect version. Like even music, like you can generate it with like a computer program, but it's different when someone plays it.
It's also very surprising that you had not taken class in years when you came into my class, because you're an incredible dancer.
Yeah, you couldn't tell.
I was like,
I thought you were taking dance like I take dance for like all the time.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this bitch like trains. And
I had fun, dude.
Oh, I'm so glad. You like also like, I think a big part of that is because you just seemed like you were having so much fun.
Oh
so
my God.
You were contagious. It was like hard not to watch you. Yeah. You also like, shake that ass. Like you shake that ass.
We love a good ass shake.
We love a good ass shake. So like in hip hop, and then you took heels, and like I loved it because so we took hip hop, which is like always ass shaky, we know. And then I was like, oh, well, you can also stay for heels. And you're like, I don't have heels, but you did it in your tennis shoes, but you were like front and center in that class, like killing it. It was so good. So it's shocking to me that you didn't like train more. No. But I will say like, when you said that you dance in the club a lot, which is like why I go too, I don't drink or anything, but I'm like, I love to dance. And I remember, God, this was like, I'm going to say like 7-8 years ago when I was in LA and I was like dancing and acting. And there was a guy that I had like trained with, I'm going to say like 2-3 years before this class that I took. And so we used to train a lot together in the same dance classes at the same studios, and we're in like pieces together. And then we didn't see each other for a long time. And I saw him in class and he was like a different dancer. I was like, oh my God, you're incredible. Like, have you been training? And he's like, no, I've actually stopped training and I've been dancing in the club. And it like completely like revolutionized his movement because he was like hearing the music differently, and it was becoming more of like an emotional experience instead of a technical one.
This is how I feel about that dance exercise class that we always bring up, that like we don't specifically name, but there's one that's like that like has all of the freedom, and it's like a cardio class, but there is technique in it. He just hides it in there, and it's so fun.
I would love to take something like that.
It's the teacher too. It's him. Yeah. He's like so great.
He's incredible, because we say this in every episode and every time we talk about it, but it's like, it's a top to bottom. So he brings in, and he's been teaching for like 30 years. So he has people that have been taking from him for 30
like
years.
You can't tell that he's like a grandfather. Like when you look at him, you're like, yeah, he's got his granddaughter came in one day and I was like, this is, you're
like, does not compute.
Old enough. Yeah, it doesn't compute.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I what we love about that though is that he brings in such incredible people, and so then you feel free to just like explore and be yourself, and it's not about perfection, especially because you're like doing
feeling
the
music. He does like you're doing the same choreography over and over again because it's a dance like cardio exercise class, but then the music changes and it's his own mix, and he does the whole like DJ thing, like makes these mixes, and so when it like slows down or is like a different vibe of the song, like the movement changes with the music. So if it's like a very like 80s sound, like people will take that movement and make it like kind of 80s. If it's like she's dancing like a stripper, people like take different things and like and do things differently in it. So it's so interesting to feel the same choreography and then like the spin that you can do with the music, and you don't think about it. You just like we go through like what makes that class so great, and that's the type of stuff that we notice about it.
Yeah, I feel like you two should talk about this class and maybe go one time. I think that you would really enjoy it, but I feel like it makes so much sense to me that you have danced a lot in the club for that reason, because you really dance from here. It's very clear. It's very, very clear.
I agree with that statement. I don't know if that's cocky to me to admit. No, I do feel something comes through me when I dance. I just like, I don't know. It was freeing. I remember being so scared of going to my first elementary school sock hop dance. I was in like 4th grade.
I'm so here for this story.
Oh my God. I'm like, how old are you in 4th grade? You're like 8 or 9. And it's the first school sock hop, and I'm so nervous to go. So I go up to my older sister, Claudia, and I'm like, Claudia, I'm really scared. And she's like, why? What? I'm like, what if I can't dance? Like, what if I'm not good at dancing? Like, it was my first time dancing, like, not in front of people because I had like recitals and stuff, right? But, just dancing with people, like, you know, on the same dance floor. And it's not a choreography. It's like you do whatever you want to in the moment. So it's my first like free dance, and in front of people, like my peers, like they're going to judge me. And I'm so scared. And she's like, Stephanie, no, like, stop it. You've danced before, but I don't know how to move. Like, it's not a choreography. Like, I don't know it. And she was like, listen. And she had to tell me these things in order to make me feel better. She said, you are Hispanic. She said it and it worked, okay? She was like, you are Mexican. You are Hispanic. You have natural rhythm in your hips. You know that episode of the Lizzie McGuire show where they do a music video to, the band was called Play and the song was Us Against the World. I was like, yeah, I love that episode. She's like, okay, well, there's a reason why they put Miranda in front of Hillary Duff. And I was like, what? She's like, Hispanics have rhythm, okay? Not to say that like they're the only ones in the world with rhythm. No, there's just a big reputation and it's in your blood, and everyone in our family, like, you know, they're not professional dancers, but they move. You're fine. You're going to be totally okay. Just have fun. And she made me feel a lot better. And, you know, I held on to the I'm Hispanic thing because I was like, this makes me stand out. Like, you got it. You just use what you can.
You're born for this.
That's literally how I felt. I felt hyped up. So I walked into that sock hop, my little 8-9-year-old self, and I'm just like, well, fine, all right, I'm gonna take the bull by the horns and I'm just gonna do it, and I'm gonna pretend like this is okay and that I'm fine, even though I'm dying inside and I'm really scared and I'm so nervous. Oh my God. But I was like, I'm fine, I'm gonna dance through this, it's fine. So I find, like, I don't know, my first 2 friends there, and I'm like, all right guys, let's go dance, before I can even think about it. And we start moving, and I feel like when I am scared to death or nervous about effing it up, I will kind of overcompensate. It's a thing I do. So how did I dance? I danced like, it was crazy, but it worked. It worked because I had everyone going, dang, Stephanie. Oh my God. I didn't know you could move. I had adults coming up to me going, oh my God, where did you learn how to dance like that? And it was feeding my ego, y'all. So I was like, yes, I can do this. And that was my first sock hop.
And Lawrenceville didn't know what hit him.
Yeah.
Lawrenceville was lit.
How old was your sister when she gave you this pep talk?
She's 7 years older than me.
Okay, so she was like 7. She was in high school, like 16, 17.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you feel like, I mean, obviously this talk has stuck with you. Do you feel like that's something you still carry with you, where you're like, I am Hispanic, I am Mexican? Like,
yes.
Okay, I was going to say, like, when you're dancing, is there this like, I'm born for this?
I feel a permission.
Whoa.
Here's the thing, and I will gladly talk about this, okay? I feel like I have permission to move and explore my hips, explore how I want to feel, because I am Hispanic, because Hispanics have this reputation and because like it's almost expected, but not really expected. It's more like you're allowed. I'm allowed to. Whereas I feel like, honestly, because I'm super white passing. Y'all can't see my face. I mean, they can, but like I'm talking to you, audience. Like you I'm white passing. Like I look European AF. I'm not even kidding. But I feel like white people don't feel like they're allowed to move. And I noticed this because I'm a yoga teacher too. And
I didn't know that.
I'm yoga certified. Yeah.
You just lit something in Rachel Lamb. Like she has been talking about maybe getting certified, and I'm like, let's finish our other 12 projects and then you can get certified in yoga. But okay, oh my gosh. I did not know that you teach yoga.
I do. And I have noticed like white women in particular don't feel like they have permission to extend their legs for as tall as they are, or don't want to be because they're not allowed to be that tall, or to like really engage their pelvic area, their groin area. Even when I say something like, all right, breathe into your chest, into your breasts, into your pecs, some people will giggle and be like, oh my God, you said breasts. And I'm like, yes, I did. And it gets people a little nervous. I feel like they feel like they're not really allowed to. And so in my yoga classes, I try to like low key undo that belief, because no, you're allowed to, like, please explore your pelvic area please. And I notice it is less tense there with just people of color in general. And if you think about it, I don't know, when I think of people of color, I feel like there's a culture of body movement, if you think about it. Whereas I guess with, I don't know what you would call white culture, right? Western European culture mostly emphasizes order and, propriety and keeping things together, and that's going to be reflected in your body as well. Corsets and cover up, and no skin, only your husband, and only when you're married. And dancing is very particular. You can only touch wrists or touch hands. Like, it's a little bit just specific. I don't want to say limited, but if you compare it to other cultures where they're very skin free or body movement free, if you compare them, then yes, you can say limited.
I think like contained is the word that's coming to mind.
Yes, that's a better word. Contained. And I wholeheartedly believe in everything in balance. I understand the necessity of containment. I just also believe that if you are going to have that strong of containment within you, that's awesome. Please find the button or the switch in yourself to be able to turn it off, to be able to let go and be free, because you deserve that, for one, and for two, you do need it, I think, to be healthy. Everything in balance. So yeah, I feel like from that moment, that conversation with my sister, I felt like I had permission. And so I kind of feel like I want everyone to know that they have permission too, because like, I don't have permission just because I'm Hispanic. I don't. But I feel like society tends to give that to me. And it's like, okay, I want to give everyone this permission. I want them to feel like, you're allowed to. Yes, shake that ass. You feel weird, you feel tense, you feel really awkward when you do it. Okay, guess what? You're starting somewhere though. Like, you're going to eventually embody your own butt, your own pelvic region. Like, because I feel like when there's tension there, you're not really embodying it yet. But that goes into metaphysical beliefs that I won't go into.
I mean, please go into them. I find this fascinating because I feel like, because I grew up dancing, I mean, I am white, right? Like, I'm Irish. And I feel like dancing gave me permission to move my body how I wanted. And I think that I got lucky that I studied at certain studios. I mean, I studied a bunch of different studios growing up. But I think that I'm very fortunate that I studied at studios, especially when I was 12, 13, 14. I think I was 13. I was at a studio for not even a year, and I had been in very contained studios up until then. Like, you wore tights and a leotard to every class, whether it was tap, jazz, ballet, anything. You had your hair pulled back in a bun. And then I went to the studio for less than a year and they were like, nope, we wear our hair down. We wear bright, colorful like outfits. Like it was completely different. And I think that studio gave me permission to dance in a different way. And then it completely clicked something in my body. And then obviously like, moving to LA when I was like 15, 16 and taking like professional classes, like hip hop classes where you are moving your hips because you're auditioning for music videos. But yeah, I feel like very fortunate that I had training and was in environments where I was given permission to move my body the way that I wanted to. Yes, encourage. I mean, if you want the job, you have to be able to move your body that way.
Yeah, you do.
So yes, but please, I mean, I would love to know any metaphysical stuff that you're thinking. Yeah. Do you want some water?
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay,
I don't know why my throat is dried out.
That's okay. And we also
that
have
happens with tea.
We have also multiple animals in here.
Oh, so I'm just breathing in pet dander.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it.
I mean, they're adorable. Look at her and her cute little...
I know, she knows how to be cute. She's like, oh, you kicked me off the table. Watch me. I'm just going to be cute over here by myself.
Do you get into fights with your pets a lot?
Oh, yeah. I have like full-blown conversations back and forth with them.
Do they respond with like...
Oh, yeah, they do. I think I've made them weird. Lucas has told me, my husband has told me that I've made my cats weird. I'm like, that's fair. Spend a lot of time with me.
It'd be like that. So metaphysical beliefs about the body. Okay, this goes a little bit into that chakra system. Damn, scratch that. This goes a bit into the chakra system. That pelvic area, you got the root chakra, the very bottom, that's red. It's your survival, your sense of survival. If it's in balance, you're at peace with where you are. If in terms of like your sense of safety, your sense of self, I got this, I can take care of myself-ness. If it's at a balance, you're probably working to stay alive. And I feel like, no offense, that's a lot of America these days. And right above that beautiful little orange zone, the navel around the belly button, you got that orange sacral chakra. This is key. This is your sense of joy. Also where your sense of pleasure lives, your ability to receive joy and pleasure and also to give it back as well. And if I'm thinking of dancing, like I'm my most joyful probably when I'm dancing and having fun. If you have a lot of tension in these two areas, especially that orange zone, the sacral chakra, I think, this is what I tend to think, I do believe it's reflective of your ability to give and receive joy to yourself, to other people. So, in my yoga classes, women always are very tight in the hips. I mean, anybody has the potential to be tight in the hips because you have the most amount of muscle there. So it's prone to being tighter. But it's always a thing with women. It's always in the hips, it's in the groin area, and there's a stagnancy there. And I think it's a stagnancy of energy flow. If you feel like you're not, the most physical statement I can make about it, if you feel like you're not allowed to embody those parts of you, if you feel like you're not allowed to move your hips or sway as you walk, or if you feel scared to walk by a construction site and your butthole tenses up and your ass cheeks do clench a little bit, whether or not you realize it, that's just that's 2%, that's like 2% tension of your day, right? But if it happens a lot, you get tighter and tighter every day, every week, every month, and it only gets worse as you get older if you don't tend to these areas of yourself, if you don't learn how to literally, physically and energetically loosen up, because it's like a current of water. You need to clear the leaves out of the way in order for that water to flow. And dancing and yoga, like it just encourages the overall flow of that throughout your entire body. And I have just noticed that with women, there's like an epidemic of tightness and stagnancy in the hips. That could be the root chakra, that could be sacral chakra.
And when you say all women, are you saying all women? Are you saying, because I know earlier you said you see a difference between like white women and women of color.
I want to say definitely all women, but there's a difference in the specific kind of problem. I've noticed with white women, or at least white seeming women is what I've noticed. It's always low back pain with them. It's always lower back pain. And yes, tightness in the hips, but I've noticed women of color, it's different. Their hips are looser, but something else. They're tighter in a different area. I want to say it's lower. I want to say it's more root than it is sacral. White women, it's more sacral than it is root.
Interesting.
So wild, because like, you know, you've been dancing for so long, you're flexible, you have all of your splits and all of the things, and low back pain.
Yeah, low back pain.
Yeah. And if I am going to take it a step further, these are also inferences made by a completely non-professional, like, scientist over here, not a certified psychologist or anything, just my observations, friends. It would not surprise me if for white women it was more of a problem in that orange zone, and then that the red root area was more in balance, considering it tends to be white women who are financially well taken care of, right? And that red root chakra is your sense of stability and security. This is where your finances might kick in. But they have issues with the area right above that. The joy, the sexuality, the creativity. Oh, I didn't mention that before, but the creativity also lies in the sacral chakra. And then with women of color, it's vice versa, right? Not to say that women of color are the most creative people on earth. Like, no, we're not comparing that. But I will say there's more expression allowed with women of color in terms of creative expression or sexuality, especially. Sexuality is it's a very powerful thing. But I'll get into that in another podcast. But women of color tend to have it a little bit more difficult when it comes to financial independence or even landing a job, according to some articles that I read. So it makes sense how those two things sort of are flipped. Mm-hmm.
How does this sit with you?
Well, it's interesting because I have chronically tight hips, but I do think that the longer that I've danced and the better my movement's gotten, my hips have gotten more flexible, and it had very little to do with it, like actually like the flexibility and the stretching of the muscles and more of the releasing. Cause like my whole journey through my flexibility has been like something's tightening that's not supposed to, and it's stopping something else from extending.
Yeah.
And I can see that also reflects in like my comfort regarding movement, because it's gone hand in hand with like my dance journey. And like, you know, recently how you're like, oh man, your range of motion and like in your isolations and stuff has gotten so much better. And that happened before my flexibility increased, which is weird, because you would think that like, oh, like your isolations and your like hip movements and things look better because you're flexible. And for me, it happened in reverse, where I got more comfortable with the movement, and then I was able to like stretch better, if that made sense.
How does that, yeah, I feel like your wheels are turning. Are they?
They freaking super are.
Oh, would you mind sharing? Are you okay with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, analyzer.
This is why we have guests, because I have interesting insight.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you to repeat that one more time?
So I am very, like when I first started dancing, I don't think I could even like touch my toes. Like it's been such a journey I've always been very, very tight. I've also did athletics as like a child, and I did baseball, and there's not a whole lot of stretching. Now I think all baseball players do yoga of some sort, but when I was growing up, it wasn't that much of a thing. So I was always really tight. When I started doing dance, I did yoga for a couple years before I was like, okay, maybe I can go to a dance class and like not embarrass myself. And so I'll do like stretches, and then things like I would get stuck at the same spot in my splits, which is like not very far, or like especially in like my straddle I struggle with. But recently, I think over like the last year and a half, I've gotten a lot better at doing like isolation hip movements and things. And from there, the movement got better and more free before my flexibility came. And I always thought that I couldn't do the movements well because I wasn't flexible. And it was actually reversed for me, where something had to like loosen up, and then I could stretch properly. I had to be flexible for it to look that good. So for me, it has happened, I think, reverse compared to what you would expect. Because I always thought like, oh, when I'm flexible, I'll be a good dancer. But I actually had to be more free with my movement. And then the flexibility is starting to come easier.
Yeah. So do you remember that metaphor I gave you where it's like, I don't even think I really spelled out the metaphor correctly. So if energy is like a flowing river, let's say the muscles are on the muscles are the land on either side of the river, right? Those are the muscles. And then the energy flow is just the river flowing through the muscles, AKA land. When you said, I thought I had to be flexible first, and then I would find like the movement. But it was the opposite for you. So I think what you did is you expressed the movement first. That's you kind of clearing the leaves away in that little section of river that was like maybe blocking you. River started flowing, and then what happens when water starts flowing is it starts clearing off a lot more. Water naturally just kind of smooths everything out. And so I'm trying to marry a metaphor with literal things. I want to say your energy flow, just you let it current through your muscles, and it actually enabled flexibility. Because what keeps a person from being flexible is the muscles' natural tensing up response, which is a protective thing. It's going, oh, Rachel, we never move this way. You never do this. You can't go this far deep. This is going to hurt you if you do. So we're going to tighten and keep you from going that far. However, you learning to like express yourself or like get more into the movement with it or releasing something, I think were your words. That's kind of the equivalent of you talking to your muscles indirectly and going, no, it's okay. Like, you're tensing up for whatever reason, but I'm telling you now that it's okay and you're allowed to just chill. And it's like, oh, look at that. You went down further, like an inch than you're used to ever in your life. But does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Mallory's been on this journey with me because I was like, there's something. I'm like, because I actually wouldn't even feel the stretches in the correct place. Like I would do pigeon, it would just hurt my joints. I'm like, I would do certain things. And now I'm like, oh, I can feel my muscles like relaxing and extending, and it feels great. Like I know that this is what it's supposed to feel like, because then you can just breathe into it and not feel so cramped all over the place. And even something with a straddle stretch specifically is everyone has you like sit in a straddle and they're like, oh, like, you know, you're off a wall, sit up really straight. You do all this stuff to get your straddle. For me, I actually had to sit against a couch to relax the top of my thighs to just get used to what that feels like before I made any improvement. And no one recommends that. Like, I'm like, I know that like I'm leaning against something and everything, but actually I had to relax everything so that way I could get comfortable there and be like, oh, my body's not panicking. It's not gripping to keep me from falling over. And once I started doing that for a little while, where I'm like not even making any progress in my stretch, I was just sitting there and getting used to relaxing. I started actually making progress.
Finding your starting point, I think, is one of the hardest things in anything you're trying, acting, dancing, finding your actual starting point, because people have very different starting points, and you're not going to have any progress anywhere if you don't realize, where am I right now? What do I need to do for myself right now?
Especially when it doesn't look great. Like when I'm sitting there and I'm like at a 90-degree angle, I'm like, well, what are we doing here? And I'm like, you know, I already went through my whole journey in high school. I didn't even do things I was bad at. Like my whole last 10 years has been making up for that and only doing things I'm bad at. But like run in the face of things you're terrible. But it's been interesting that how like, you know, a lot of it is in the releasing and that kind of stuff, and being comfortable with being terrible. Like I actually just went to a dance class, and it was not, I wouldn't say it's a recreational studio, because most of the other, I think almost everybody in the class wants to be like a dancer. Or like, you know, professional level dancer or whatever. And I was like the worst in the class, and I didn't even care, because I'm like, I'm here for me. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, there is a time that I wouldn't have been able to do that. And like, this is what my dance journey has brought me to, is just like being there, being comfortable, doing what you can, and knowing that it would get better if you just keep going.
It changes the game when you finally accept that. And I think that's kind of the hardest part.
And everything you said and are saying about Rachel Lamb feels correct to me, because you are a type A, like, this is how
I'm
like
go
clenching.
Life.
Yeah, like
this
I'm
is
like
how I go
this
through.
is how Rachel M goes through life. It's just like clenching. Like I feel like there's constant clenching.
I'm very this.
Yes, you're very like do like this is everything needs to be in order. And so
I never got you have Latin hips pep talk. I mean, I'm Filipina, so I'm like the Latina of the Asians, but
Yeah, you are.
I'm
What?
like, yeah, well, for sure Hispanic speaking because my mom speaks Spanish, but in addition to Tagalog.
Ooh.
But I'm like, I never got, everything was like very rigid and clenched and contained and like all of that kind of stuff growing up, like modest and all of this stuff. So I know, like, you know, even like sticking your, like, I'm like, even sticking your ass out for your husband is like, oh, this is just so much. Oh, he's loving it. He's like, I'm going to keep paying for you to go to dance classes.
Of course he is. Let him support you. Let him support that root chakra.
Yeah. So I'm like, but it's like, that's just, it's weird how like the way that people feel when they hear music and they tighten up. I'm like, a lot of like my hip movement and stuff feels like that too. I mean, like now I don't feel so much like that. It's been a huge journey. But a lot of it does make a lot of sense from my yoga experience and my dance experience.
I bet you tightened up when the music first came on because you immediately felt like expectations. But that's how I would have read it anyway.
or is that accurate?
I feel like
fuck, I gotta put on a show.
You know, what's interesting is like, because I'm not like a 3, so I don't think about other people as much as I think 3s do. But for me, it was more of like, I would hear it, and the past has shown me I'm terrible at this, and the past has shown me like maybe like a situation that like I was uncomfortable and I was expecting that myself. Because this is almost my thing with driving. Terrible metaphor. But I'm like, if I just have to like drive somewhere that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm just following the GPS, I can do it. But if I know there's going to be like a terrible left turn and I'm like, this is an area that there's a bunch of car accidents, I actually get more stressed doing the exact same drive because I'm anticipating. So I feel like with dance, if I'm sitting there being like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be terrible. The choreographer is going to hate me and be annoyed with me. I'm going to run into other people. If I think all of that, then that will probably give me a worse experience than just being like, you know, I'm like, a lot of that mentality is like what I'm expecting. I'm expecting all the bad things to happen, including with like dance, where I'm like, at least we have like rec studios that we can go to. And I'm like, whatever, it's, you know, we're here for us. But I think that like a lot of the fear for me comes from thinking of like all the terrible ways that it could go wrong.
That's very 6, yeah. Whereas I think you and I mean, I don't want to make assumptions, but I know for me, I'm like, when I was younger, it's like, I'm going to look dumb. I'm going to take up space that I shouldn't be taking up.
Yep.
If I ask questions, people are going to be annoyed with me.
Yep.
Like it was more of all of like the perception of me as opposed to like just even the part of being bad. It's like not just the being bad. It's like how will people perceive me if I'm bad.
I hate that. I know.
I don't love that about myself. I'm working through it. Like it's a constant work in progress.
And then you find out like no one's even thinking about you.
I know. No one gives a fuck. It's hard to remember though, especially when you're in some smaller classes too. And like, especially when in a dance class, you're in front of mirrors, sometimes on all walls, and you're like, oh, perfect. So we can see me from every angle, even when I'm in the fucking back. Like it's really, it's overwhelming.
I think the mirrors are such an interesting thing because I knew a girl in California who did a paper on like whether mirrors are good for dance or not. Because if it's better to feel the movement and feel what it's supposed to feel like in your body, because when you're on a stage you don't have the mirrors, or if the mirrors are like good for like a teaching tool or whatever. And it's interesting because there's schools of yoga that also are like intuitive and no mirrors and like trust where you're stepping. And then I'm like, I've been in those environments, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, this doesn't look like it feels at all. And then like, you know, in dance, because it's so like, you know, your lines and everything else, I'm like, I don't know if you can like go through life or like go through that type of art that way. But it's interesting to think of like what's like, I've stopped looking at the mirror in yoga for like months, and then I look at, I'm shocked at how different it looks after not having looked at it and just like feeling it in my body. So it's like, I don't know what's better. If
I feel like both, like to me, a combination of both.
Yeah,
is
like
really
doing
important.
a certain amount. And then I think it's interesting when dance teachers have you face away from the mirror for half of the combo, or like you'll run a combo and they like move you to different parts of the room and then also have you face away from all of the mirrors and see, and then you're like, oh God, I'm in space.
Suddenly everything's gone. Yeah. A lot of the choreography will leave me when we do that.
Yeah. I mean, just moving different spots in the room, the choreography leaves me, but like also changing, it's like whatever felt extreme enough, because you're watching it in the mirror, you're doing it. And I'm like, is this enough? Like, is it, you have no idea what it's supposed to feel or look like in relation to each other. That's what's crazy to me when I watch people like do music videos. I'm like, wow, they're just out there in a field dancing. Like they practiced it, they did it, they're out there. And I'm like, and they have no mirror to tell them if they're squatting low enough. Like, how does that work?
It's interesting because I also feel like there's different perception of movement based off what you're looking at it through. So my friend and I, who's a dancer, we've been friends for, shout out to Steph, we've been friends for like 14 years at this point, but we're always like, yeah, every mirror is telling a different story. And so you almost can't yes.
Wait, keep going.
Yes. Well, that's like a main thing. Honestly, a big part of that is also related to body image, because you could look in a mirror and, you know, whatever, a certain department store, and then go to like a different department store and you're like, I have 2 different bodies and it's been 5 minutes. Or I go to the mirror at home. Like, it's just like
after like a Frappuccino and you're like, what happened?
Yeah. But even if like I have no change in my body, I'm like, what happened? And like lighting, whatever. But also as a dancer, I feel like my movement looks different in different mirrors. It also looks different in a mirror versus in a camera. It looks different on like a camera versus an iPhone camera versus like
one on a gimbal, one that's stationary, one that's in the back of the room, one that's in front of you, one that's on the ground, one that's on the sticky thing on the mirror.
Absolutely. And so I've tried to focus more, and this is like a 3 thing. I've tried to focus more on what it feels like, even though like it's weird. I'll see it in the mirror. Okay. Here's the reality. I had a crisis recently because I was like,
not yay for the crisis, yay story time.
Yeah.
Story time and growth.
It's not a huge, I mean, you and I talked about this because I like came out of the studio and I was like, oh my God, I'm terrible. So I was like, I found this new studio that I've been really enjoying taking classes at, and seeing myself in the mirror, I was like, I'm fucking killing it. Like, I'm so good. But also mostly because I was having the most fun. Like how you are in classes, like I'm just like, I'm here, my heart is so full. Like you could not stop me, could not rain on my parade. And then teachers do this thing now. I feel so old when I say this, but like teachers do this thing now where they record groups and they record like everyone, and then they do like a link in the bio of their socials, like their Instagram or whatever, and then you click on that and they have a Dropbox where they put all the videos for each class. So you can go,
oh God,
yeah, you don't even have to take a video, because I don't take videos of myself in class. I know you, Rachel, sometimes do, because you like for like a growth tool.
Yeah, because I forget, just like when you move in the parts of the room, I forget choreography when I move from looking to the mirror to looking at the phone. And so I started recording myself because I realized I'm like, oh, I know the choreography, but not when I film. I freak out. I'm in my head and all of those things. So I'm like, it was good practice to do, to film yourself. And like, I also started keeping track of it to see, like, you could see like my hip rolls look completely different from 7 months ago and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not because I'm like trying to film an audition video, but like it was really interesting. It is good to film yourself because it does feel different in the mirror, and like stuff that I was like, I thought I was killing it, and I'm like 6 months later, and even in the mirror it looked great. I'm like looking at the videos side by side, I'm like, it's crazy how different it looks.
Yeah, I feel like you use it as a data tool. Yeah, and so I never record it. And then so one day I was like, oh well, let me just go see.
Oh God.
And like, wow, what a meltdown. I was like, oh my God, I'm like barely moving. I was like, what happened? Because in the mirror, I was like, yeah, the movement's so big. And then I saw it on the camera and I was like, it looks like I'm marking it. I don't understand what happened.
And also like used to like when you do see videos, you're looking at Instagram and like it's all these like studios in like LA and New York, and they like have neon lights and they have smoke and they have like a gimbal following.
But we also talked about they use like a special
editing to do like shaking.
Right? Yeah, is it like shutter speed?
Yeah, like I think they're doing a certain frames per second. Yes. They do stuff because you're like, oh, it's not it's
like jolty
sped up, but like they're able to do certain things with editing, and the music is still at the same tempo, because I'm like, they're not speeding it up, but there is like a certain camera movement and frames per second that gives it that look.
Yeah. And so I saw this like raw footage from an iPhone, and I truly was like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, because I had gone from being like, dance is my life again, it's my lifeline, to being like, I should never go back. And so
because we had this whole like conversation about feeling like fish in water, like like even though dance is not my, like I love dance. Lucas even said, when you guys come back from dancing, you're better people. Like this is like who you guys are. And so I know that like, even though I'm not great at it, I enjoy it so much. It feels right. Like I haven't been in dance classes for I think 3 or 4 months since I canceled a membership to a dance studio I was going to, and I recently took that one class, and even I came home, I'm like, this is what I used to feel like all the time, and it's the right amount of sore and exhausted, and like you just feel like you've had music flowing through you for like 2 hours.
Dude,
it's incredible. And so I feel like I had to shift though, and be like, I'm not watching any more videos of myself. Like I had to set a rule for myself and be like, I'm not,
because it's taking your joy.
It's taking my joy away, and I'm not focused on booking jobs. I'm not focused on what it looks like. And it's fascinating how the perception changes based off of what medium you're watching yourself, whether it's like live in the mirror or you're watching it through a camera or what type of camera. And so I was like, I had to step away from what it looks like.
It's a lot like photography if you think about it though, where it's like, yeah, it's a picture, but I'm like, what's the lens length? That affects like how tall or wide people can look because it's a limitation of the device. Same thing with like lighting. Like if it's like lighting that you're shadowed on half of yourself versus like flat lighting can make your body type look different. And there's so many things that you're like, oh, like when everyone's like the camera adds 10 pounds, I'm like, well, actually like the lighting and the camera and the lens length and all these other things can really change. It's not what you're used to seeing in the mirror. And also like a camera can take a picture of you from this side and we never look at ourselves from this side from eyes over here without looking at it. So I think that it happens in dance too, where like the perspective like changes how something looks. Like when your feet are closer to the camera, it looks whether like it makes a difference on how tall you look or how deep. Cause like a camera on the ground, you can squat and have your ass on the ground and not look like you're squatting at all. It just like sucks the movement right out of it.
It's crazy. Yeah. I think that the thing that I really will stick is it's a limitation of the device. It's like not an issue of me not being enough. It's an issue of like that can't capture everything that I'm offering. So I think that that's what I'd like to.
Remember that statement because that statement can be applied to like, I don't know, boyfriends. I know, this is what I'm like starting to think about. I'm like, that actually rolls over into a lot of life things. A lot.
Oh my God, this might be on our pillows, our pillow series. We keep coming up with these like catchphrases where like, we're going to have a pillow series that just has like these ridiculous statements on pillows that we've pulled from our podcast.
It follows.
Yeah. Oh, that movie is truly true. I want, after this, remind me and I will play the music for you because the soundtrack's incredible, but it's really scary. Have you seen the movie?
No.
It's
what
very
year?
scary.
When did it come out?
It was like 10 years ago, like 8-9 years ago. Yeah.
What?
Okay, I'm going to say it's like 8 years ago.
Who's in it?
I want to say it's like 2013. It was
Who is in it?
The woman in it was like, it was like her first big thing.
So everyone's like great in it, but we have no idea
They're
who they
kind
are.
of new.
Because she looked kind of like Brie Larson, but it wasn't Brie Larson.
But it was not Brie Larson. She was
like this beautiful blonde.
Yeah, but we've never really seen her in a lot.
Oh, one of the friends is now an Atypical.
Yay, good for her. Shout out to you, girl. I don't know your name, but good for you.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Shit. All right, good for you, dude.
Yeah. Good for you, buddy.
That's right. That guy.
Yes.
Good for you, sport.
Oh my God. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. I'm sure he's listening to this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know if you know the reach of our podcast yet, but definitely.
But yeah, and to go back also to the chakra, because that makes sense to me when Rachel, you were saying that you feel like it almost like shakes shit up. And this is why, to me, I always say dance is spiritual. And
yes.
Right? I feel like it's doing work that we don't even know it's doing.
Oh, that's like most things. That's life, period, honestly. You can find it in almost anything. But dance specifically, since we're talking about it and it's a dance podcast, yes, absolutely. It does things that we don't even realize.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting, I'm like really just learning things for me today. But I'm like, oh, yes. I think that in the past, I would think that taking a class recreationally was a waste of time and money because I tend to come from a scarcity mindset. Yeah. I mean, not as much dance. The way I always made it okay was that I would say, oh, I'm a performer. This is like towards my career.
It, yeah.
I would justify it. It's an investment. Absolutely.
Necessity.
But even now I'm like, like, should I be spending money on this? And it's interesting to be like, oh, it's doing work that I don't even know it's doing. Dude. And the lower back pain that I have, that I'm not going to say that dance could cure that, but actually when I started dancing again, my back pain eased.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because for a long time I stopped dancing. I wasn't dancing for several months this year and my back pain got worse than it's been in like, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years.
Because most people expect the dance to have done it or like something you're doing wrong in yoga to like aggravate it.
And I was working out. I was doing
circuits.
Yeah, I was doing circuits, but like core work, stretching, foam rolling. Like I was being very intentional with what I was doing with my body. But then as soon as I started dancing again, I stopped having most of the pain.
Dude, sometimes it really is. So if we go back to Rachel Lamb, you were looking to like increase your flexibility. It's not always, you don't really go for that goal or that result. That result really only ends up being achieved through you accomplishing something else on your way to it.
Can you say more?
Yeah, I was gonna say like expand.
Like
because Because I'm sure I'm not the only person on this podcast who's listening who has
majority of people.
issues.
How do I? Okay, so I'm trying to think of a personal example that I can speak of. Balls. Keep that, balls.
You're like
next pillow
going on the
series.
pillow. Yeah.
It's gonna be a round pillow.
So let's take just a general weight loss journey, for example. Let's take a general weight loss journey. So I, obviously, it's 2020, like a lot of people gained a few pounds. Like,
We just had the conversation. We just bought all new clothes.
Yes.
I'm like,
I'm done
living
having
in this.
meltdowns because I can't fit in things. I'm like, this is so unkind to myself.
yeah. So 2020, and I was still reeling from like a very complicated breakup that happened like even a year before that, but I was still trying to like just process a lot of things. And 2020, I basically developed a relationship with Nutella. We're sponsored by Nutella now. And I got a little extra fluff is what I'll call it, because there's nothing wrong with fluff. It's fluff. Fat's a mean word, but fluff is cute. So like I got a little fluffy, and I was I'm not the person who like can gain a few pounds and be like, oh, it's fine. You know, it's whatever, I'll just lose it later. Like, it's not a big deal. It's just, I'm going through something right now. And no, I freaked out, and I was like, okay, new fitness journey. I'm going to do what I did in college to stay fit. I'm going to do my high intensity interval training and I'm going to cut this down. And so that was like my goal, right? That was the result I was seeking. However, it was my older sister who pointed out, and she's a genius. She's got a lot more metaphysical thinking capabilities than I do. I think she kind of trained me in it a little bit. I would start pointing out parts of my body that were a little extra fluffy. I'd be like, Claudia, like, look, I have some softening. I've like love handles now, and this doesn't happen to me. Like, I've never had love handles before in my life. And she'd just be like, I don't think it's a weight issue. I don't think you're gonna lose that love handle weight through like just exercise. Like, I don't think that's the problem. And I always know that she's always itching at, there's deeper meaning here. There's not just love handles. Like, what does that really mean? Why did you gain this weight? What's going on? And so what I usually do is, well, at first I was just like, no, it's just weight. Like, I ate a bunch of Nutella. I just have to lose it. And I'm just going to go back to what I did in college because I want my college body back. So I started doing high intensity interval training, HIITs for short. And I couldn't finish it. I couldn't do it. I was not the same anymore. And that's the part that really killed me and that made me break down in my room hardcore one night was, oh my God, my body's not the same. Not in terms of just like I have some extra cushioning in places I've never had it before, but in terms of I can't get through this 20-minute HIIT video. And that's ridiculous to me. That freaked me the fuck out. Because if I can't do this 20-minute HIIT video, what else can I not do now? Excuse me, am I getting limited? Like what? And it freaked me out enough that I broke down in my room and I got so scared. I Googled spiritual meaning of love handles. I'm not kidding. I did it, y'all. I did it. Okay. Judge me all you want, audience members. And it said, I got to give it credit, dude. It literally said, if you tend to gain some weight around this area that is surrounding your sacral chakra, it tends to be an area of, it's a physical manifestation of guilt. It's a physical manifestation of guilt. So what do you feel guilty for? What are you beating yourself up for? Who did you feel overly responsible for that you can't let go? And what was I still fucking dealing with? How did I gain this weight? My fucking breakup from 2019. And so I read that felt like an idiot for Googling spiritual meaning of love handles, but I read that and it silenced me.
I feel like felt stupid, but believed every word.
Oh yeah. I was here for it. I was like, that feels correct.
Sometimes you got to do stuff that makes you feel stupid, but like, look what came of it. Like, it hit a nerve. It hit a nerve, and I got very quiet. I stopped crying, and I just kind of sat in that information for a second. And it did make me think, like, well, you know, there's a reason, I guess, that the stereotype is after you go through a breakup, you tend to gain weight, or you're the opposite. You lose weight and have some sort of a glow up, I guess, because some people are much better about letting go of, I don't know, their exes.
Well, let me just say, when I went through my first breakup as an adult, I lost a lot of weight, and it wasn't a glow up or a healthy thing. It was because I was too sick and unwell to eat because I was so upset. So heard. I think that the outside world was like, wow, you're doing really well. And I was like, no, I'm dying inside, which is why I look this way. But thank you for reinforcing terrible habits. But yes, heard. Yeah. I think that it is guilt, shame, sadness, anger manifesting in its own way.
Because I've never had issues in that part of my body, and I've also never been able to not get through a hit video. Like, I work out consistently, but my point is, I couldn't really start that end result that I was seeking, the whole losing weight thing. That wasn't really the goal. That wasn't the actual objective. That's the end result of the work that I actually had to do, which is, oh, fuck me. I got to work through this guilt and shame, and I got to let ex-bae go. I got to let things go. I got to let some people go. I have to take off certain responsibilities off my back. And so, lo and behold, I started doing that. And what happened? I wouldn't say I lost the love handles, right? But it's different. I don't know. I look at my body now and I'm like, you know, you look good. I don't know why I feel so different about it now versus, I don't know, 10 months ago when I was like freaking out. And my body's changed. I am not the same person that I was in college. I am never going to be that 120-pound little girl that I was in college. I did my darndest to try and stay in that little girl body. But honestly, guys, even when I was in that little girl body, like, I wasn't satisfied. What was I thinking of anyway? I was paranoid because I was like, oh, I don't know. I have the body of like a tiny girl. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to feel sexy enough, or like, I want more curves. Like, I don't know. I should have more body, more woman to me. And now that's actually happening. I'm very much turning into second puberty, a woman's body. And yeah, naturally I'm freaking out because it's a different change. And it is making me step outside of the conventional, acceptable body form that worked for me back then. But I like what's going on. I don't know. I like what's going on.
Yeah, I will say, and I've had a journey with my body as well. I think a lot of dancers, a lot of women, a lot of people, like, right, if we zoom out. But I think especially, again, dancers, we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. And we talked about this with Lady a bit as well. But what I realized is, I feel like when you say like, oh, what else can I not do? Like, to me, I almost attach certain bodies I've had in the past to like nostalgia, if that makes sense. So I'll be like, well, if I have this type of body, that means I'm capable of these things, and I can like relive this time. So for instance, the first time I like started gaining weight, like when I went on birth control in my early 20s, I was on birth control, I don't know, for like years. And I remember in my mid 20s being like, why am I missing, quote unquote, missing, I'm doing air quotes, my body that I had when I was like smaller and like, it's so crazy how we can't even describe bodies without it being problematic, because what I want to say is like more of a dancer's body. And I'm like, that's unacceptable. Yeah. But that is what was drilled into our heads growing up. It's like, this is a dancer's body. Yeah. But when I had more of the body that I had when I was dancing a lot when I was younger. And so in my mid 20s, when I didn't have that body and I wasn't dancing as much, I was working out, but I wasn't dancing, and I was on birth control, and I just was like filling out. Like I had like, I think like D boobs, and like, I know, I was
Okay.
Okay. And I remember though being like, oh, I like am attaching meaning to a body that is attached to nostalgia, that's attached to capabilities, that's attached to emotions, that's attached. It's wild how like somehow that imprinted on my brain that this body means I'm going to have all of these things again.
That's so interesting because even the day that you went into dance, you're like, I already feel better about my body, seeing it move and everything. And you're like, it's the dance. It's not like the change in the body. And I feel maybe that's even my attachment to my body from before COVID, because I was dancing the most I was dancing like 6 days a week for several classes a day. And I really enjoyed it. It made me really happy. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, well, I was like this type of body because I was dancing all the time. But I'm like, I don't even think it had to do with the body, because like I truly do like my body now because I've been weightlifting and like did a lot of work to put on like a certain amount of weight and muscle, and to have like I can do a pull-up. I couldn't do a pull-up before 4 months ago, but now it's changed my body completely. And I think what I was attaching it to was also probably like I liked those activities that were associated with the body, not the body itself.
Like memories.
Yeah.
Which is wild because also we weren't, I don't think, any more or less happy during that time. I think that dance brought us a lot of joy, and it brings us a lot of joy. And we had a specific kind of joy dancing that much. But when I really, like if we were to be like on a happiness meter, I don't know that, were we actually any happier? I really don't know.
I think of how I felt when I even went to the dance class that I did terrible in like 3 days ago. As terrible as, and what I mean by terrible is like I was not handling the choreography because it was a lot. There was a lot going on with it, and it was like a 2.5 hour dance class, and so it was just a lot of choreography for me, having been out of dance, and then also it's like a style I'm not used to. And I like walked out of that just feeling great, feeling like I had my quote body from like 2 years ago, like 17 pounds ago. And I'm like, I feel like it was the same. It had very little to do with what my body looks like or what size I fit, and more of like what it was doing in the activity.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a certain amount of joy that comes out of it where I'm like, oh, I feel right after having done like this activity, versus like when I go to the gym, I don't feel that. I like don't like running. I don't believe in running. Like there's like so many things I actually say, I'm like, actually I don't believe in it. If I don't believe in it, it doesn't exist. There's like a lot of things that I don't enjoy, but when I do enjoy something, I'm like, I don't feel like I was exercising. I think I tell you that all the time, where I'm like, every time I go to a dance class, I don't feel like I'm exercising. I just really enjoy moving my body. And then you think you're like, I might not always be able to move my body for the rest of my life. Like I'm healthy right now and all those things. And like, I'm so grateful that my hips do move and all those things. So I try to like focus on that. And I think that that's something that does come from dance, where you can enjoy that without, and it's so interesting that you made that correlation, because I never thought about that before just now.
Yeah. Well, because I think that I just was so frustrated craving something that my body was not meant to have anymore. And so I was like, if I can get to the root of it, maybe we can let this go. And I'm not perfect. And then honestly, I feel a lot of shame, because I feel like I really try in my classes to be like, it's your body, it's perfect how it is. And I truly believe that, but I am really hard on myself about my body. Rachel Lamb knows this. And it's something like, it's always a work in progress, but every time I am taking dance classes consistently, not for exercise, but just for my soul, those body issues like essentially melt away. Like they go away, because I'm like, look what my body can do. Look what she's capable of. Look how she's so sexy. Like, and then when you have like a little extra juice on you too, you're like, oh, this moves completely differently now.
Yeah. What that sounds like to me is, I don't think bodies are just meant to be looked at. Yes. You know, like, okay, good. You look good right now, but like you watching your own body move in the mirror in your dance classes and having fun, like they are meant to be used. They're meant to be, it's a tool of expression too. Like, come on, they're meant to, mobility is such a beautiful thing. And I just like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to me that you suddenly feel much better about your body after you've been using it. And I think most people think that the only way to, I think most people only use their bodies by going to the gym with the sole purpose /goal/result, which we were just talking about earlier, of losing weight or gaining more muscle.
Like saying something's wrong with it and making it better.
Like fixing it.
Well, then you're only reinforcing that belief that something's wrong with you and you've got to fix it. Well, every time you go to the gym and you're doing it from this place, you're only reinforcing that belief that something is wrong with you, versus like, you know, if you genuinely just want to put on some more muscle because, I don't know, there's plenty of healthy reasons to want to put on more muscle. There's also plenty of healthy reasons to want to lose weight. I just really don't want people to have those goals because for unhealthy reasons. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's something that has been weaponized against us.
Oh, yes.
Again, humans, women, dancers, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get on like a capitalist rant. I'm not even someone who does capitalist rants. I really am not. I just am like, oh, but people make money off of our insecurities.
Oh my God, billions.
And
Yes.
like my own insecurities as well. How many things I wouldn't have purchased if I just felt 100% content in my body and who I am. And I don't mean just like what it looks like in terms of size or weight or anything. I mean like, you know, my skin or like what my hair looks like that day or what my makeup looks like that day. Like people feed off of that. And so it can be hard to step back and really look within to figure out what actually you can address instead of trying to fix it on the outside. Like having that fix it mentality.
From the inside out, dude. Mm-hmm. From the inside out.
Yeah. Which whenever I start on the inside, I do feel like I just feel better. I feel better about the way I look, about the way I move. Everything just seems to kind of fall into place. It's hard though. I'm pointing to you because I'm like, as a 3, I think that we are trained to be like, well, if I achieve something on the outside, which can be like molding your body or reaching a certain level of intelligence or like getting something, you're like, then I will actually feel good.
Freaking in college, which was my first time like being away from home, and I'm in FSU in Florida State, in a different state. You know, my family's in Georgia. I'm now in Florida. I've never been this independent before in my life. I still wasn't even driving a car. All of a sudden, I'm by myself at FSU. You said something that like sparked this. I don't know why. What were you saying before?
Inside Out, and I feel like when
as a 3 stuff about
yes. As a 3, like I blacked out. Do you know?
It's like you're doing something for on the outside.
Oh yes, like if I reach a certain level of intelligence, if I reach a certain, like if I do something on the outside.
Yes. I don't know how this happened in my brain. We can blame the media and we can blame capitalism, but I thought I'm at FSU. I don't know anybody here except for like 2 people. I don't know what to do with myself. I feel lonely. I'm scared. I don't really feel in charge of me. I need to control something. What can I control? Well, I guess I can control my body. I went ape shit at the gym. And I started, this might be TMI, I started being bulimic my freshman year. And it was really bad, I think, for like a month or 2. And not because I look fat or feel fat. No, I wasn't fat. And I never really thought of myself as fat at that age anyway. At that age, I felt like I was fine. I was pretty skinny, but I still needed to control something. And the thing is, I would go to like the food hall and I would just stuff myself because, I don't know, I felt so ungrounded. I felt like a balloon in the middle of the air with like no roots to the ground. Completely unsure of everything, unsure of what I wanted, unsure of who I was, unsure of anything. And I just needed to feel weighted down. So I stuffed myself. And then I felt ashamed because I felt like, well, no, that was you losing control. So then let me gain that control back. I'm going to throw you up. And it's like it never happened. I have fixed you. I did that. And then I'm going to go to the gym. And I fixated on that thinking, this is me controlling something. This is good. This is good for me. I am exercising control. This is awesome. But I knew, obviously, in the back of my mind, yeah, throwing up is not a good thing. I've seen enough Lifetime movies. I know it's bad for you. And like, eventually I did stop, but I will never forget how just like my immediate response to I need to control something was, well, my body. I think that's like the first, I've read this somewhere that women tend to, when they feel out of control, you tend to go to their bodies because I guess it's yours and you feel like you should be able to control it. So then they try to dominate their body and it never turns out well.
Yeah. And I think that certain forms of controlling our bodies are encouraged in our society too, which makes it even more complicated. And what I mean by that is, like when I wasn't eating because I was stressed because I was going through a breakup and people are like, well, you look so great. Mm-hmm. It's encouraged to be unhealthy sometimes depending on your body type. And
you look skinny. You're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, you're tying that to something. and not TMI, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that this is why body stuff has come up in multiple episodes at this point, because it is so tied to dance.
Dang.
And it's so tied to being a woman or being a human.
So this is a consistent pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree that so much of it is about control. I've also researched a lot about this, and I don't want to say any, but really anything I've read that talks about women controlling what they eat or exercise or throw up, et cetera, is linked to control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like I started to feel, the first time in a long time that I had felt some sort of like rebubbling of like body stuff was during COVID. And it's like, well, of course you can't control anything. And so we go, oh, well, what can I control? I can control my body.
Myself,
and it doesn't
my body.
feel that logical in the moment, or it doesn't like line up like that. But even when I stopped and was like, oh, because pretty quickly I was like, oh, I know how this game goes. And you cannot stop it sometimes. Like the thoughts are still there and you can only control your actions, but it's hard. It's hard.
You know what it is? I think there's nothing wrong with, I feel a complete lack of control for my life. What can I control? Me. Okay, you want to exercise control? Sure, but why does it have to be unhealthily so? And I want to say, well, I guess I turned to bulimia and the idea of losing weight, because that's something that I'm not gonna lie, I feel like that has been programmed in me, like growing up here in America. Real talk. That's like one of the things that you're allowed to do with your body. Hey, you're allowed to work out. You're allowed to want to lose weight. Repeat that message over and over again through commercials and products and everything. Hey, you're allowed to lose weight. Hey, you're allowed to lose weight. Hey, you're allowed to lose weight. I feel a complete lack of control. What can I do? Like, I need to control something. Oh, well, I'm allowed to lose weight. Let me do that.
Even more so than allowed. It's almost like this is a good thing. You're on top of things when you're on top of this.
When you're
on top of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, I can't control anything. Okay, well, the first step to self-improvement is
losing weight.
And then when someone gains weight, like when I had gained weight recently because of medication or whatever, I was like, why do I have an issue of showing up to class and people acknowledging and like realizing that I've gained weight? And it's because it feels like people will make this assumption that like I'm not on top of it or I'm not disciplined.
Yeah.
Which is, I would never think that about someone else. Like, I don't know how you all feel, but like, I'm never feeling this way about someone else, but I am certain in my head that people feel it about me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, you don't have to agree if you don't.
No, if I notice someone has gained weight, I'll clock it. Cause you'll notice like,
yes.
Oh, you physically, you have eyes, you'll notice. But then what do you infer from it? My first thought is to go, oh, are they going through something? Mm-hmm. That is my first thought. Because that's what I've seen represented a lot in TV and stuff. Like people gain weight when they're going through something tough. Then they lose it when they're back on top of things.
Yes.
So that will be my first thought. But my second thought will be, you don't know shit, Stephanie. Shut the fuck up. Like, no. And they say that your first thought is usually what society conditioned in you. And your second thought is what you genuinely, like a genuine thought of yours. So I will think that quickly and I'll catch myself because it's not something that I should be holding on to. My body's changed and I don't really, like, I don't know. I'm not like the happiest I've ever been in my life, but honestly, I'm in a much better place than it was a year ago. So I'm not going through the same things I was then. So I know that assumption of, oh, well, if you gain weight, you must be going through something pretty tough right now. It's not necessarily true, dude. It's really not.
Well, also, when I was very, very tiny when I was younger and then gained weight, it's because I was healing. And so if you, and if when I've lost weight during breakups and then I eventually gain weight again, because what happens is I can't eat after a really bad breakup. I'm nauseous. I don't feel well. My emotions are just bleh. And then I am able to eat again. So of course I gain weight. And so that's me healing. And it's also normal for your body to fluctuate.
It is, especially for women.
And I think something that I've really struggled with all the body positivity movement and like loving your body movement, which I think is really valid and important, is that then I feel like if I have days or moments when I don't 100% love my body, I'm like, now I'm a failure. Like now I have shame for that because it's like, you're just supposed to constantly love your body. And I'm like, no, I think that you're allowed to have moments of not loving your body, but it's what you do with that information.
Yeah.
Instead of going, well, I'm going to try to control it, going, well, great. Can I take a dance class? Can I take a yoga class? Can I go for a hike? Can I just sit in the discomfort for a second, because it's also cyclical and a lot of feelings and thoughts are cyclical. Yeah. So I also don't want to put a stamp of shame if people don't always love their body, because I think that that is actually really fucked with me. Yes,
no, that whole 100% positive all the damn time. That's the fastest way to make yourself turn into like American Psycho. Yeah. No. You have to, back in the older days when doctors didn't know shit about medical stuff, so they would just bleed people. Yeah. Because they thought the poison or the disease is in the blood. Let the blood out. Let it flow out. Okay. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm like, you got to let some of that blood out. Yeah. Yeah. You got to unscrew it a bit and let some of that blood out. Like, I think you will tighten up a bit if you try to keep it 100% positive all the damn time. You got to release some of that tension. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. And I think the best thing you can do is learn how to nurture you in those, we shouldn't even say bad days, sensitive, vulnerable days. You know, if I feel crappy about my body that day, I will put on my comfiest outfit that makes me feel like I am so fucking loved by this warm ass fleece right now. Oh my God. Oh, let me burrito up in this shit. Let me like feed myself some popcorn. I'm going to watch Harry Potter, whatever. And then, I still might feel shitty, but I feel comfortable as well and super, super engaged on Draco Malfoy. So
yeah. So I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think that stuff can be really vulnerable, but I hope that anyone, any of our 2 listeners, you can feel a little less alone, because I just think that I'm not a fan of shame. And I think that anytime there's shame in any direction,
I'm so good at it. I'm so good at
I know. That's why I'm really I'm like, let's get the shame out. Like it's gonna creep in, but I'm not a fan.
I'm like, some people live their life not caring. We always say this, like when
do they?
Yeah. Yes. Like there are people out there who like can do something embarrassing and let it go and go on with their life, and it's just like so fun and fun. And I'm like, we're like, God, should I care about? I'm like, some people live their life.
I know. Rachel Lynn says that all the time. She's like, some people live their life like this, and I'm like, how? Fucking how?
Different happiness, different people.
And they have their own problems. I mean,
yes, they do.
That's what I was about to say. Like, they don't have our problems, but they got their own. Everyone's got their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears a bit, because I ask this question to everyone and I really enjoy it. Do you have, and you might not, listening to your history, but you might. I feel like a lot of dancers have at least one traumatic dance class experience that really kind of scarred them. Okay, you're laughing. So
was it that contemporary jazz class at 15, 16?
Oh my God.
Like I wasn't the best.
No, I don't actually think I've had a traumatic dance class. The closest thing we'll get to traumatic is just that one that you mentioned where I just wasn't great
for years.
I just didn't come. So no, I don't think I've had a negative. No, but that's not to say there's not toxicity in the dance world. I'm not out there enough, y'all. Be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great though. I'm so happy for you.
We're so happy.
We're so happy. Love that for you.
Because one of our guests, her traumatic experience was in Mallory's class.
What?
Yeah, wonderful.
What did you do, Mallory?
Because she took my technique class, and I mean, you saw this in my
for
heels
anyone
class.
Who skipped straight to this episode.
Yeah. I call people, I don't like that, but I will call people out and be like, let's talk about what just happened. Yeah. And call them out in the center of the floor. And so she's very introverted. This is Shu. And so she's very introverted, and it was like her first class at like a recreational studio. She'd like never really taken a technique class. She'd taken whatever. So, yeah, she was like, it was very traumatic. She wasn't going to come back. She was like, I wasn't going to come back to your class. And she has told me that before, but I'd never heard the full extent of her experience until she was on the show.
Like there's a build up before like the event, and then she's like, well, we did that.
Yeah. And then, but she did come back. She said that she like had to go in her car and like think to herself and be like, okay, Shabangi, you wanted to get better. and this person comes from a place of love and will help you get better. And so but I understand, because I always think about when I was learning French for a second, and I was using a very popular app to learn, and I was like, I got to get it on its feet. Like I need to go to some French speaking meetups where other beginners are learning. So I found a meetup and I went, and everyone was way more advanced than me. And so when we would go around, there were like 6 or 7 of us at this restaurant. And so then like everyone's supposed to be practicing, like conversing with each other as a group. And every time it was like my turn, I just like felt like a fucking idiot. Like I was like, I can't even. And they're like, no, go ahead and try. And I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't know how to say this. So then I just keep being like, how do you say this word? Okay, great. And then I'd have like one more word. I'm like, how do you say this word? Like, it felt terrible because I was on the spot. Yeah. I was in front of like 6 other people.
People are witnessing you.
Yeah.
And you don't know them.
And I don't know them. And so when I think about students in my class where you're like, no. And I'm like, no, just go ahead and do it. And they're like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I think about moments like that because I'm like, it's really vulnerable and scary. And you're like, it's not even like I know what you want me to do right now. So that it was very traumatizing for sure.
See, I have moments like that in in like stuff like learning how to drive or, I don't know, filling out tax forms. Like just, yes.
Please say more.
I like the moments of, I don't know what you want me to do, and something about them freeze up and it's just traumatic for them. I will get those experiences in learning what, I don't know how to describe it, red tape stuff, physical life, normal stuff. And my point is, I've had my fair share of those. I feel like an idiot and people are witnessing me and I don't know what is expected of me and this is freaking me out. And oh my God, I'm trash. I shouldn't have been born. Like, moments. I've had enough of those. So that when I do encounter someone, I love finding people like that who are very scared and don't know, and they're like a frightened little animal and they don't know how to do like this pose. I enjoy that because I don't know, it's a really good teaching moment. It's a good teaching moment. It is.
Yes. I was going to say, I bet you have this as a yoga instructor, because that's why I love teaching beginners, because I'm like, I'm finding you at one of your most vulnerable moments and now we get to build. Yeah. And it's like, I will hold your hand. Yeah. Like, we will get through this together.
Like, I'm going to walk you through this. I understand how you feel. I've been there, not in yoga necessarily, but in other places. And like, I know how to talk to you. And I like that. I like that moment.
Yeah, which is a very, again, 3 thing, because it's easy. Not that only 3s can be empathetic, but there's this like natural, you're reading the room and scanning the room and like taking in everything else the other person's feeling so that you can meet them where they're at. Yep. And so sometimes it's like the flip side of that is that you mold yourself to the room or people. Yeah. But as an educator, it's really wonderful to be like, I can empathize with where you're at right now.
I love doing that. I love finding people's starting points. It helps in giving feedback as a standardized patient. As well as being able to, cut that out of there, that comment about my family. Well, I'll rephrase that. It comes in handy when I need to help members of my family communicate with each other, because there's a struggle sometimes, but I can recognize. I find value in that. It's nice.
Absolutely. Do you find teaching really fulfilling?
I do, but the irony is sometimes I feel like a fraud.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting.
Like, I've been certified in yoga and I taught, but I haven't taught in almost a year or 2, y'all, officially anyway. Cause I quit cause I felt like a fraud, but I think I'm also probably prone to imposter syndrome, where like, it doesn't feel like enough. It's easy for me to feel like it's not enough. And then I hear of these other yoga teachers who aren't even certified, who didn't go through any training program, who are teaching. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm a fraud now, but I just think I have very high standards, and it's like, I probably won't feel like a legitimate yoga teacher until I've taken anatomy courses and reflexology and all this other stuff that I'm actually genuinely curious about. When the truth is, I'm actually a fairly good teacher, and I've only ever gotten compliments from my students. So yeah, I do like teaching when I'm not getting in my own way and, judging myself, and I'm only focused in those moments of I know I'm helping out a person right in front of me who just landed garland pose, and it clicked in their mind like, yes, I feel like I have made a difference in their life.
Yeah, that is something I felt as a dance instructor when I first started. I was like, I know I can do this, but can I? And I would get anxiety for the first like year of teaching. I would get anxiety before every class. And then especially if I started teaching at a new studio, I would get anxiety for the first few months of teaching.
Damn, Mallory, you're a great teacher. So this it gives me relief to hear. Like, what the hell?
Thank you. I actually forgot that you, in this moment, I was like, oh yeah, you've taken my class. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I would get massive anxiety and like get really shaky and like my voice would be wobbly and I'd have to be like, okay, here we go. Like I'd have to walk in and just be like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. I mean, even last year, like, yeah, I will get anxiety. Like once it starts now, I'm fine. But I got massive anxiety for a while. And really actually after taking, because you take classes too, where you're like, this person's allowed to teach. Like they don't, so much of teaching too isn't even about the knowledge you have. It's about communicating and like being willing to be there with people, especially with beginners. And I think that that's where I was like, oh, being a good educator is just caring about your students.
And
like,
letting that flow through. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And not getting in our own way. But so often I'm like, oh yeah, I see how we can improve what's happening in front of me. And so how do I help you understand what I'm thinking?
Make it about them.
Yes. Yep. It's like similar to acting, right? Like you're like, it's not about me. As soon as it's not about me, I'm fucking golden. Yeah. But if I'm trying to make it about me, I'm done.
You're fucking it.
I'm fucked. But as soon as I'm like, oh, how can I get you to there?
Yeah.
Great.
That's why it's so funny with like acting training is so much of it. Like, how do you get to not to think about yourself?
Yes.
Like you go to all this training and hours of practice trying to not be thinking about yourself.
Nope. Person in front of you. I love that.
Interesting. Do you think you would get back into teaching yoga?
I think so, yes, because a girl needs money.
Yeah.
I need money. So yes, I will be when I guess I could teach even my heel. I have Achilles tendonitis right now.
Oh.
So, but I can still do yoga and I've started swimming as my new form of exercise. So it's been nice. I definitely want to look into teaching again, just because it is a skill that I have. And I do think I have like, you know, I have value. Yes, like I feel like I can actually be a good teacher. So I think I'd like to start small, like maybe a couple classes a week somewhere. And then I really want to look into a Zumba certification. I love dancing. I have so much fun. The dance class of yours that I went to like 2 years ago, I was having a miserable day because the night before I had gone on a date with this guy. And I don't know. It was the end of the night. He was dropping me off at my car. I'm in his car. He leans over to kiss me. He keeps kissing me. I keep kissing him. And I'm like, you know what? We'll make out. Fast forward to 5 minutes later. We're like, I don't know how, he kind of dragged me to the back seat. And it just happened so fast. We didn't like do anything, but he was ready to go. Like before I knew it, he had whipped his dick out of his pants. And I was like, I thought we were just making out. Like what? Yeah, he had whipped it out. And I just kind of cut it off. And I walked away from the date thinking like, did I do something during the date to give this impression that I was trying to do that tonight? And like, I don't know. I felt a little powerless, dude. I felt a little like, and the thing is, I think this defense mechanism kicked in of like, what did I do?
I was going to say, this is what we, again, as women do. Like we're conditioned to be like, oh, I must have done something that like gave this impression. Like, also, fuck this dude. Fuck this dude. Fuck this dude. I'm like ready to go slash some tires and maybe slash some wrists, but like, I'm so sorry.
In my experience, you don't whip it out unless, I don't know, she's been like groping you and like she'll undo the pants. And I don't know, it's 5 minutes into kissing and your dick is out.
Yeah.
And we're in the back of your car.
Yeah, dude.
Your like SUV car. No.
Read the room, sir.
It was a lot. And I couldn't, so I was self-blaming the next day thinking, what did I do? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, how do I not make sure that this happens again? And so I was feeling really down on myself and very confused. And then I went to your hip hop class and I was like, I know I didn't want to, but I was like, I know I'm going to feel better after I fucking dance. Like, I know I'm going to. I don't want to go though. But Mallory's teaching, like, let me just go. Let me just go. And it was everything I needed. I feel like I remembered that I was a human being. I remembered my powerful little self. I remember that I'm a woman, and I was just like, I feel good. And then I texted the guy that night and was like, hey, I'm not interested in seeing you again. Bye.
Wow.
So I felt empowered after that hip hop class.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Fuck that dude. I'm so sorry.
It's gonna go on a pillow.
Yeah, fuck that dude. I'm so sorry that happened. I'm so sorry that he's a fucking piece of shit. And I'm so sorry that, like, which I've done this too. Something happens to me and I immediately start to blame myself and be like, well, if I had XYZ, maybe it wouldn't have gotten that far that quickly. But we all know, you and I know, we know where we're at right now. That's not the case. People have conditioned us, especially as women, to take all of the blame. And this is why things need to be contained so that we're not, whatever. This is a whole other conversation. But, like, thank you for sharing that. And nothing about this is about me. But I really appreciate you sharing that because I'm really moved. And I'm honored that, A, you would share that, and B, that dance can have that impact on you. And
it really did.
I'm really taken aback and just, like, honored. Like, I think honored is, like, really overwhelming.
Like, the heels class girl, it reminded me, like, that's right. This is my sexuality. This is mine. You said, like, all right, guys, just let it go. Make love to yourself. And I was like, oh, that's right. Like, this is mine. Like, I choose who I get to share this with. It's not like it's only allowed to exist when I have a man in front of me who wants to engage with me sexually. Like, no, this is present in me and it's mine. And I have a lot of love and I have a lot of sexual energy, and not like a lot, but, like, I would think a normal balanced amount, but it might seem like a lot to I don't know.
But even still, right? Because I will say I have a lot of sexual energy. Like, I feel like I've had friends be like, you ooze sex. You walk into the room and it's not that I'm like, oh, I'm so sexy. I just, like, I have a very sexual energy about me that I really love about myself.
And guys, you can't see her. It's not like she, like, fucking, like, walks into rooms naked and, like, no, it's not that. It's literally Mallory has a strong presence about her, and she'll walk in with jeans and, like, a loose ass fucking oversized shirt, and the guys will still be like looking at her. Okay. So please get rid of the what is this? The Walmart version of sexual energy. It's not accurate. It is not accurate. Okay. Just so you,
it's so funny because there's an incident where Mallory was at a party and she's, like, in her oversized t-shirt and, like, an outfit she wore to the airport. Like, her hair's in a bun, and we're, like, at this party and there's girls walking around in, like, thong bikinis.
Oh my God.
And, like, this really attractive guy came and, like, talked to Mallory, and the next day she was like, I just am stunned that, like, we're surrounded by women in, like, thong bikinis, and he was like, you in the oversized shirt and messy bun.
Yes.
I want to talk to you.
It's an aura and an energy about her, and there's nothing wrong with it, and no woman should ever feel ashamed to have that in her, nor she should feel like she has to contain it all the fucking time, because I think, learned how to keep it in your pants, literally, por favor.
Thank you.
It's not my fault. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
No, and that's what I remember in that class. I was like, you know what? It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I don't want to keep checking. Am I flirting too much? Am I being loving too much? Because I am kind of a freak about, am I giving them the wrong impression? Stop. I gotta live. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm okay as long as, I let you know where my head's at and what my boundaries are. Like,
yeah. And I'm like, how about we stop telling women to be aware of what they're putting out and tell men to be aware of what they're putting out? Like, literally. Do you know what I mean?
I think that we need to shift the education. More. Yes, please.
Thank you both. Also, what I will say is that during COVID, I felt a lot less. I was living in Atlanta, and I felt a lot less safe during COVID because fewer people were out. So when I walked my dog, I would get catcalled a lot more often. I came out of the studio I was teaching at one time, and no one was out. This was like a week or two into lockdown, and someone had, like, I walked into that studio with, leggings and a sports bra, which is what I always teach in because we were like recording videos. And I came out with a note that was like, hey, how much? Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It just like, I felt like I was being harassed even more than usual. And I feel like we usually get harassed quite a bit, like walking around as a woman in a city. And so I felt very unsafe. And I go through periods of my life where I make like dance concept videos just like on my phone. I edit it on my laptop. Like it's like nothing special. It's strictly for me. And I remember showing my friend Jen, and Jen was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Because it was like a very sexual song and a very sexual video. And she's like, this makes so much sense that you would want to do this right now so that you can reclaim your sexuality. Yes. In a moment where like people are like robbing you of safety to openly feel how you feel in public. And so I think that movement has helped me reclaim my sexuality multiple times when I don't feel safe to have it in other spaces. And this is what I really realized too when I had come out from taping that video at the studio, at the dance studio, and had that note on my cars. I was like, oh, how wonderful. I should be able to feel this anywhere. How wonderful that I at least have dance studios to walk in and wear anything I want. This is like something that I don't think we've talked about. You can go to a dance studio and wear pretty much anything and no one's gonna care.
No one's gonna tell you like it's not enough.
Yeah, no one's gonna be like, hey, you need to put some clothes on, or hey, like no studio I've ever been to as an adult at least. And so it's really beautiful to walk in and like some people are in like tights, thongs, bras, sports bras. I remember there was this like traditional jazz class in LA that I used to take, and all of her dancers wore like truly triangular bikini, like string bikini tops and like jazz pants. Like you just, anything goes. And so I'm really grateful that I have a space and a vocabulary to express my sexuality in a way that feels safe. Dude. I should be able to do that anywhere. I should be able to do it anywhere. I should be able to walk my dog on the street in sweats and not get harassed, but or in shorts. Like it shouldn't matter what I'm wearing. But I feel like dance has helped me reclaim things in the past too, which unfortunate that it even comes to that point. But I know that this podcast is about dance. My point, my goal every episode is not to have an after school special about dance, but it just really is to me so magical. Like the healing powers of dance it's like I can't even begin to process.
I cried in the middle of a Halloween Zumba party because it was a bachata song that was going on, and it was a slow one, and it was a lot of hip movement. And that was when I was still reeling fresh from my breakup, and out of nowhere, the song is so beautiful. It's like this guy talking about how happy he is that he can finally call her his. And I just start tearing up out of nowhere, and I go to the bathroom and I let it out. And I've never cried before in the middle of dancing. It was the first time I've ever sad danced, and I was like, wow, it was really nice though. It's like a really nice release. And yes, I will definitely be the first one to say I believe movement and dancing can it has a deep connection to one's sexuality and sexual healing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one more question that I ask all of our guests. It is, do you have any advice for people who are maybe like stuck at a hurdle? Because you have encountered some hurdles with dance. No traumatic classes, it sounds like, but I feel like you've had your own version of hurdles, especially around not being the best or not being good enough, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any general advice for people who are maybe getting stuck at some of those hurdles?
Identify what the hurdle is. And don't give yourself an easy answer like, I'm not good at turns, or I just don't pick up choreography well. No, that's the end goal, not the end goal. That's just the indicator of something else that's going on.
Like it's a symptom.
Yeah, it's a symptom. And America is notorious for treating symptoms and never the root causes. Identify the hurdle. And when you do, don't be ashamed of it. Although if you do feel shame, all right, feel it. And then And then I dare you to start moving when you're in that space.
Wow.
Without a mirror. Just start moving.
She's
see
like,
what happens.
In case you were wondering about my stance on mirrors, Stephanie's like, this is it.
Call back to.
Oh, I don't mind mirrors. I just feel like as soon as you've identified the hurdle, you probably don't want to see yourself, because what's going to happen? Oh, how am I moving? Let me see, how am I moving? How am I expressing this feeling? Like, no. I want you to feel it and start moving and see what happens. That's my advice to you and my dare.
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. You're so wonderful.
I enjoy
Thank
this,
you so
guys.
much.
Yeah, truly. So we have a little outro.
Yeah,
Outro.
Let's see if you hit the right one.
Yeah. Well. Thanks, friends. We'll see you next time.
Look at that. No mirrors.